Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. I am Everardo Resendiz, known around here as Coach Ever. I am a certified executive and business coach here at Action Coach in Northwest Louisiana. Today, I have Aaron Lawrence, the CEO of the Lawrence Law Firm from Ruston, Louisiana, as my guest. Today, we're going to be talking about his business, the journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share peeking to what it's really like to own and operate a business. If this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when we drop new conversation, just like this one. And so, Aaron, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Coach, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, please share a brief overview of your background and tell us a little bit about the Lawrence Law Firm.
Sure. So, born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. All my family's from Lake Charles and Opelousas, and then I finished high school up in Dallas because I was a little bit of a problem child. Joined the Marine Corps, and they helped straighten me out quite a bit. Did some things in the Marine Corps overseas, domestic. I'm sure we'll talk about that and get into some of those things. Then I partnered up with a private security firm out of Southern California. Worked there for a little while. Had an attorney on leadership there who mentioned that I'm one of the few Marines that could read and write before he ate his own crayons, and so I looked into law school a little further and came back home to LSU, go Tigers, and finished up my law degree there. Met my lovely wife, and she told me we're moving to Ruston. I said, "Where's that? Never mind. Don't care. If you're happy, I'm happy." We moved back to Ruston, back to for her. Have three lovely children, and now I have a law firm and practice law here in Ruston, Louisiana, mostly criminal defense, personal injury, and then we're building out an immigration practice now. And then I also still do a lot of work in the veteran space, and through some partners there, we found a tradition production group, which is a media conglomerate, and we tell stories of showcasing faith and resilience.
Love it, love it. So you have your hands full. I only meant that about the three children you're handling.
That's right. And they'll keep anybody's hands full who'll let them. So
Where do
they
you
are for
find the time
sale.
to do all these things?
Well, fortunately, my wife is the best helper I could ever ask for, and through the grace of God, we're able to muddle on through.
Me a favor, let's set the stage up for the viewers and the listeners. Um, what does the current ownership of the business, what is it like? I mean, are you the sole owner? Do you have any partners in it?
I am the sole owner, and so my wife is also a licensed attorney, and she practices with us as well, kind of as needed. I've got a couple contract attorneys that we use for more in-depth work, or things like that require some travel that maybe I can't get to. But it pretty much is me running the show, and of course, I have a wonderful staff that keeps my head on straight for me and helps me out as well.
So, tell me a little bit about the role. I mean, what I find normally with attorneys is, a lot of their time is occupied in working with the cases that they have, right? And not so much on the running of the operation. What is that
That's
like for you?
That's definitely an easy trap for attorneys and really any professionals who are, owning their business. They forget to run their business. And so, there's always that dichotomy of working in your business versus on your business. And it's a balance, for some folks, Monday morning starts with, the books and payroll and the things that help the business continue to grow and be healthy. And then for others, that's the last thing on their mind Friday afternoon, and it often gets pushed off in favor of dinner or a beverage or whatever they're into. And so
That's right.
I fortunately am it's not always fortunate, but I'm organically an entrepreneur. I started selling candy on the bus in third grade, and before I knew what margins were, I was checking them, and I just love business. And so law just happens to be my business, but you run it the same as you would a lemonade stand or any other business. The same principles apply and always will. And so for me, I try and practice about 60/40, about 60% on law and 40% is really running my business and forecasting and just thinking about what's next for my business and for the people that owe my business to, which are my staff, my wife, my children.
Right. Well, you know, you hit the nail on the head. It truly is perhaps one of the most difficult things for business owners to shift from the day to day, and dealing with the fact that you need to find work and then do the work, and bill for the work and collect on the work, and all these things all come playing together. um what was that transition like for you? And you came from private security, you were getting a good paycheck on a regular basis. Now you go into these, and it's all depending on you.
Sure. Well, I enjoy the pressure. I find that if there's not a compelling reason for me to get out of bed, I can shift kind of into let me just stay in bed today. So when you have three children, there's one, two, three compelling reasons right there. But I've always kind of leaned towards figuring out what I'll put in a kind light is efficiency. In a negative light, it's how little can I do to earn the same paycheck. And so when you tie your money to my time, I want to figure out how I can do more than you need in less time. And so
Mhm.
I tend to, for that reason, stay away from the billable hour and really do flat fees in my particular practice. But in a broader sense, that to me is kind of the lifeblood of an entrepreneur. If you're always looking for new systems, new processes, better ways to do things, that's constant improvement. And that's what being an entrepreneur is. If somebody else were doing this, doing whatever I'm doing the same way and as good as I ever thought I could do it, then I may not have that entrepreneur mindset. That mindset really comes from just constant improvement.
So I'm gonna ask this question. It's not fun, but I normally ask people, but there is a point in your life where you will have or you will not want to continue doing the day-to-day work, right? The operating part of the business, right? Um, have you picture what does that look like for you?
I have, and that's probably the number one challenge with being the professional, right? If you're a CPA, if you're an MD, if you're an engineering firm, if you're a lawyer, I am the product. And the any business book you read that's worth anything is going to tell you that's the number one, two, and three cardinal sin of a business is don't become the product, right? And it just kind of is by de facto the way the law works. I can hire other attorneys, but when my name's on the door and if my reputation's out in town, people are going to want me at some point. And so for me, being a serial entrepreneur, having other businesses is my answer to that. I'm in no way or interest to shut down my law firm or slow down, but as supplemental income comes in and as systems are put in place, I can be more selective about my cases, and that keeps me passionate and excited, and my clients can tell. And we have to be a little more selective with our pricing. There's an old saying that a lot of lawyers are scared to double their pricing because they might only get half the clients. Well, it doesn't take much math to figure out that that's a good thing.
That's for sure. And you look, you may not realize this, but these nuggets, what you just said right here, this is what this podcast is about. People don't realize how much that sacrifice that they're putting in is costing them long term, right? You really need to find a way to become the owner rather than the product, and
That's right.
that's difficult. And you're right. You mentioned architects, you mentioned engineers, CPAs, any professional services. It really depends on the individual to do things, and yet there are ways to go about it where you don't have to do everything for the business, right? And so I love the idea of balance. How does that play out for you? Um, because we hear too much out there that what we seek for in life, and when we're an entrepreneur, is the ability to move and create new things. But that normally doesn't end up in balance. That ends up with something getting a lot of attention and something that doesn't. So
Well,
what does that look like for you?
Well, for me, again, I come from a Marine Corps background, so if I tend to go into firefight analogies, it's not because everything is a mess or on fire, or we need to call it combat, but it's shoot, move, and communicate, right? That is the crux of what Marines are taught from a firearms and battle perspective, and so when you're shooting, that's the only thing you're focused on. That your target, your reticle, your front sight post is on one target. Depending on your weapon system, you're only hitting one thing with that. Now, that being the case, I'm still going to move and then communicate, and sometimes I can do all three of those at once. Sometimes I'm only doing one of those, but I'm always balancing the triangle, even if I'm leaning to one point or another. And so I do think being able to put the blinders on and completely focus on one thing on for a day, for 4 hours of deep work, for whatever that is part of the balance equation. What balance looks like on Tuesday isn't what balance looks like on Thursday. And I think the biggest push and pull true entrepreneurial spirits have against what tries to become the standardized marketplace is trying to find this perfect recipe where you can wake up the same time every day, you can go to work the same place every day, maybe even
Right.
wear the same thing, and you have this perfect balance because you have this much time at home, this much time at work, this much time in prayer, whatever your balance is, that you can just come up with this perfect recipe. And I just don't think that's feasible. Hadn't been for me. And so you zoom out and you look at, maybe, is your month balanced? Are 6 months balanced? Is a quarter balanced? Is a year balanced? Because I just don't think having a balanced day, it's just too small of a sample size of time for me. And so that's where I find balance and kind of you know, remember to check in. For some people it is once a day, for some people it's once a week. But if you're balance is something you strive for as opposed to perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah. What you're describing for me is balance by means of focusing activity um, where it's needed, not where it's wanted.
And hopefully you get just occupational hazard, picking on words, right? Hopefully you can get to a point where you're proactive enough to get there before it's needed, and
Absolutely.
where it's planned for, where it's operationally viable, where it's efficient.
Yeah. But I really like that approach. I really like that approach. Okay. So let's move on to what makes your business so special.
Sure.
Who primarily does your business serve? If I am in the audience, how will I know I'm a good fit for you?
Sure. Obviously criminal defense is one of those things. There's someone unfortunately is going to come tell you if you need me often. Usually that person has a badge and a nice set of silver jewelry they're going to provide to you. But that being said, the way people shop for lawyers and doctors it's very needs based. Back to that need versus operational plans, right? You typically don't wake up in the morning and think, you know what, I should start doing research on who a good criminal defense attorney is just in case I need one. No, something's gonna happen. Hopefully not to you. Maybe it's to a family member, a loved one, a friend, and they're gonna call in crisis and say, how do I find a lawyer? And everyone's gonna do the same thing. They're gonna type in to Google criminal defense lawyer in Ruston, Louisiana, or Shreveport or Monroe. And you're basically just hoping that whoever paid all the money to the Google search engine optimization, gods, is actually going to follow through and do what they advertise they're going to do. My advice to anyone, and what we try and do here at Lawrence Law Firm, is you're looking for two things when you seek an attorney for anything. One is going to be, do they explain things in a way that makes you feel comfortable and gives you command of your own situation? Because at the end of the day, you should be making those decisions. Those decisions. They're going to be providing legal advice. Hey, if you do this, we may have to worry about that. But at the end of the day, it should be your decision. So they shouldn't be speaking over your head. They should be talking directly to you about your issues and what you have going on. So number one, really one, two, and three are communicate. Right? If they communicate well with you and you feel comfortable, that's a really good indication. Second one is, do they live up to their promises? If they say, I'm going to call you tomorrow, do they? And it's simple as that. If they got busy before you've even paid them or right after you wrote them a check, they're only going to get busier. And so busy's a trying to stay G rated here. Busy is a very poor excuse for someone who's unorganized.
Yeah, that's right. That's
And
right.
so I can't, I'm of course understanding when people call me and say, Aaron, I know you're busy, but I'm very dismissive of that because if I were too busy to answer, that would be my problem, not yours. And so if you can nail an attorney down to a promise, I'm going to call you tomorrow. I'm going to text you on Thursday with results. I'm going to get this for you, whatever. And they deliver on that. Again, that's building a great foundation for hopefully what's a brief legal relationship because no one wants a lawyer, right?
Okay. And so, does that mean you take any cases that have to do with criminal defense? If it's criminal defense, you take it.
I do, as long as it's a good fit. Obviously, there's a fees, agreement, and then geographic restrictions. My law license covers Louisiana, and so even though El Dorado, Arkansas is 45 minutes up the road, completely different set of law, right?
Right.
And so we had discussed before the call a traffic ticket in Baton Rouge. It may just not be feasible for someone to hire me based on what it takes for me to get down there. But you know, I've taken violent crime cases, I've taken sex crime cases as far away as Lake Charles, Baton Rouge. Haven't had anything in New Orleans yet, but it's okay. I've gotten some calls. And the other thing about calling attorneys is no one knows more attorneys than attorneys. And so if you have something that's outside my wheelhouse, or maybe I just know there's someone better for you, I'm going to recommend them. That's
Right.
it just doesn't do any good to start off a relationship with me saying, "Oh, I can help you with this, no problem," and I know I can't. And then all I got to do is disappoint you and lose my reputation, which is how I feed my family.
You'll be amazed at the amount of times that they will take you on anyway, even though they haven't done it before.
They
Um,
will.
and that really comes down to going back to perhaps a little bit of what you were saying. When you need an attorney, it's not like you have a lot of time to choose,
That's
right?
right.
Or you don't feel like you have a lot of time to choose. You may have plenty of time, but nobody educates you in that regard, right?
That's
So
true. And one of the things I try and do in my consultations is I always say, if you hire us, but if you don't, I want you to walk out feeling a little better, feeling a little more informed, feeling smarter about because a smart client makes a good client.
okay, this leads me then to marketing, right? So for that person who needs you, right? Whether it is, an immigration issue or a estate planning issue or, criminal defense or personal injury, right? When they have that queue come to them, you need to be able to show up. So how do you do it?
So how do I show up and deliver on the promises I make in marketing? Is that your
So how do
question?
they find you? I mean,
Oh,
there's a lot of let's call it high advertising volume attorneys around these states, right?
there's a lot of folks that spend 7, 8 figures on billboards, and you'll
Yes.
never see my face on a billboard ever. And um, because I decided on that, I'll take fewer clients and charge a little more. Because I decided on that, I tend to gravitate toward clients, and the clients gravitate toward me who don't want a lawyer out there, putting you through a conveyor belt of legal process. And listen, I'm not coming down. I have really good friends who work for some of those larger firms, and they have a very good system, and they do very good at what they do. But that may not be you, and you may want to know if it's you or not early on in a consultation and discuss that.
Right.
So one of the ways I was really fortunate, I got some great advice early on that said, "Hey, go be a public defender, get all your repetitions in court. You're going to go from 0 to 200 clients overnight at the public defender's office, and you're going to see every kind of case and set of facts under the sun, and your name's going to get out there in the community." Now, that's a big risk day one out of law school because if you mess up, right, that's all they know. And so I was fortunate. I had very good mentors. I did what I feel was a very good job. My business has supported that notion and idea. So for the first 3 years out of law school, I was a public defender and got, you know, 200 to 300 clients. I can't say for free, but with no marketing, right?
Right.
And so that gave me a steady income. That's something I just can't push hard enough for entrepreneurs if you are starting a business and there is a possibility that you can get a guaranteed income,
Yes.
and you can lock that down. Charlie Munger would talk about your first 100K is the hardest because you need that regular. I mean, And if you can't live on 100K a year, even in 2026, 2025, then you need to check somewhere else. You need to check your expenses. But if you can live on 100K a year, and then you can start really worrying about how to grow and take these moonshots on bigger things.
Right. Well, I mean, in the case of attorneys, it is certainly the option to do the work to train really. Um, it is not available for every industry out there, but there's always a method in which you can find something that will guarantee some of that. Maybe a contract, maybe somebody who's willing to support some of your efforts because it's very dicey when you're starting up and not getting the cash flow you need to have. And so, we talk about these, of course, at the beginning. It creates a reputation for you. Now, people around the community know who you are, right? Um, do you not advertise at all?
I pay to make sure that Google knows who I am. I do a lot of things on my website organically. I was very fortunate. My middle son was born right about the time I was writing my website, so I had a lot of hours, beyond when the sun goes down to sit and write and come up with formulas. But the beauty of starting a business or even just deciding you're going to take your business to the next level in 2025 is the amount of resources that are out there. And you know, uh,
That's right.
I don't want to take away from action coaching or anything like that, but before you reach for your wallet, reach for your keyboard because
Absolutely.
there's a lot of free stuff out there. Not all of it's great, but the great things have stood the test of time. And so I
That's
mean,
exactly right.
don't sleep on books. There's a lot of good books out there about how to run a business and just general principles that you can abide by. And you can teach yourself a little bit about search engine optimization. And social media has gotten so raw now where they don't want to see you struggle, but they want to see what it took. And in a strange way, the I hate to say the harder you make it look, but the more you show your struggle, the more you're kind of protecting yourself against competition because the guys that were going to come out there like, oh, I could start an HVAC business. There's no sweat. And you're documenting what it took to get you to two, three, 400K a year, whatever you're at in an HVAC business. You're showing how hard it is and
That's
showing that you're
exactly right.
beating it.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, of course not. In fact, when people approach me and they're entrepreneurs and they're new to it, I normally tell them, hey, look, there's plenty of resources that are available, not only um, you know, by going to a library or even Google online, but there are organizations like business incubators, there are foundations, and even the state has through LED other programs that will get you going. Don't go and spend money on things that you don't need to spend money on at this point because
I,
it's not necessary.
I couldn't agree more. And just to be a little bit of a contrarian, even though, it's what I said, I'll also tell you one of the concerns you should stay cognizant of is don't stay too long in a sandbox that's too small. There are business incubators out there that all they want to talk about for some reason is startup capital or even resume building, which is a huge red flag for me. I'm an entrepreneur. If I'm running a business, my resume, yeah, it doesn't need to collect too much dust in case an opportunity comes up, but no one's hiring a business owner on their resume. That just doesn't, that's not how that
That's
works.
right.
And so be leery of either antiquated or just ill-fitting advice. And if you're back and you're on a merry-go-round and the same thing, that business club or group may not be for you. And don't be afraid to move on.
That's the thing that we do then start making those relationships and those connections. And that's difficult to get away from when you're, you know, still, let's say in the early stages. But you're absolutely right. The savvy business owner knows where they need to move on, right? And that's what makes a difference. So thank you for that. That's excellent input that we need to make sure that gets out there. And again, like I mentioned to you in our previous conversation, the whole point of these podcasts is to put the reality out there. There's a lot of stuff that is just showing up the highlights, and yeah, we're here, yeah, but you have to go through a lot to get there.
That's
And
right.
most people don't realize it really is a contact sport. it's unpredictable, and there are a lot of sleepless nights when you don't know where your next client, your next opportunity will come from. So,
If you're doing it right. I was very fortunate early on. I got a lot of calls very quickly, and I'll be honest. Some of the things I spent money on, I spent it like there was a printing press in the back room, and you go through your slow seasons where there's not, and you have to scramble around a little bit. And so, when things are good, think about how to make them greater. And if you'll stay on that constant improvement, even if you get knocked down a peg, you'll still be on a growth trajectory. Which if you're not growing, you're dying. That's just me.
all right. So we spent a bunch of time focused on the business and sharing some of these best practices. I'll also take a step back and dive into your journey a little bit more, which is really what we're getting into. But we talked a little bit about the transition, from paycheck to coming into your own and having all these ups and downs, right? But as you look at this journey, what has been the most memorable roadblock or hurdle that you were challenged with, that you were forced to overcome?
Ooh. Um, I'll tell you. So one of the things that took a while for me to adapt to was workflow. And so deciding uh, when I was being proactive in the customer service environment, hey, I'm up thinking about your case at 2 a.m., this and that kind of thing, and anybody, hopefully you've never gotten a text from your lawyer at 2 a.m. and I was smart enough not to send it. But those emails have been written at 1:30 in the morning where I'm up, hammering on somebody's case. And I was working for the public defender's office, but before I had my own practice, and I got a phone call. Keep in mind, law school, and before that, working in Southern California, where nothing's off limits. If you're at dinner with your wife and kids, which I didn't have one at the time, but they just said get up and take the phone call. And
Right.
so, coming from that to a small town in Louisiana, I answered a phone call from the chief public defender at the time, and about 12:30, and he could hear noise in the background. He's asking me a question. He said, "Wait, where are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm at lunch at this restaurant in Ruston with my wife." And he said, "Hang up the phone. Call me when you're done with lunch with your wife." And so having someone impose that work-life balance, as we had even discussed, on me, and just, if you're in that mental box with your family, stay there. And so that was kind of a gut check for me, is, oh, okay, the workflow is different. Now I still work, late nights sometimes. And the way I kind of keep that controlled is that email queue. I have it teed up to send out at 8:05 or 9:10 or whatever. So if anybody gets an email from me first thing in the morning, there's a good chance I wrote it last night. But yeah, I mean, that was a gut check for me. It's not enough to work hard. Sometimes you got to make it look cool, look easy, and flow into your customer's comfort level. Because it occurred to me that, why is my lawyer up burning the midnight oil on my case? Oh my gosh, there's something going on. And you're creating, when your job is to create comfort, you're actually creating a little bit of discourse there. So just learning the flow of your customers and how they like to engage with you is a big gut check, because it may not be how you like to work. And there's tools for that.
Right. Wow. That's quite something. So that has impact on you, not just in the business, but personally, because you do
Absolutely.
get to focus and compartmentalize whatever time is dedicated for the business and for the family. And it's a shame to say that, in business ownership, we find that too many people break up or break down. Um, because the pressure is on to try to maintain some intensity. In reality, what we need to maintain is that harmony
Well,
between what business is and life is.
what I conceptualize as is, I have three sons, 11, 4, and 3. And my toddlers, if I give them one piece of birthday cake, they're it happened last night. My youngest son had a birthday last week, and so we've still got some, leftover birthday cake. And so, that was dessert. And so my 4-year-old, halfway done with his first piece, Dad, can I have another piece of cake? You haven't even finished that one, son. When I finish this, I'm gonna have another piece. And that's every customer. They're not demanding another piece of cake, but if you're trying to be a very welcoming, customer service oriented business owner, you want to say yes to absolutely everything.
Right.
And then you want to get irritated and go home to complain to your wife or friends or whatever it is. These customers just won't leave me alone. Well, brother, you're leaving the front door open. You
Exactly right.
know,
We train our customers, don't we?
that's right. That's right. They go off your lead. You're the owner of the business. Own your business, own yourself, own your own life, and they will adapt. And if they don't, they'll go bother somebody else, and it'll be somebody else's problem.
Yeah. We call it send it to your competition.
That's right.
All right. So I wanna take some time and talk a little bit about this other project of yours.
Sure.
The you called it the media company,
Yeah.
um,
Tradition Production Group. Yeah.
Tradition Production Group, and so this is is this like a nonprofit or is it?
No, no, we're a for-profit media production company, and where we're starting out, our focus is on helping veteran service organizations tell their story better. And so let me back up a little bit. So again, keeping that balance, I try and always do something for professional development every year, required by the state, but also for personal development every year. And so last year, I was extremely fortunate to be accepted to the George W. Bush Presidential Leadership Scholar Program out of Dallas, Texas, which was amazing. It was 5 modules, go once a month, everything paid for, and we had some speakers who were former cabinet members. We had some former Joint Chiefs of Staff talked to us. The former President Bush himself came and addressed us at certain points, and just it was just a master class on leadership. And so, as you might imagine, I got quite a few hundred candidates. 34 of us were selected, and of those 34, I met some very close friends, which have become business associates. A couple of them, and so two of them we started kicking around this idea of just kind of whining and complaining like parents do. Oh, there's nothing for the kids to watch on TV. There's nothing we can watch as a family, things like that. And we said, we're hearing stories every day in some of these modules of just impressive leadership and faith-based resilience and all, we constantly get bombarded with veteran suicide being a problem, and it is. But as opposed to trying to put a safety blanket on people and tattooing them, telling them it's going to be okay, who's showing them that they're going to be okay and they have what it takes to make it through, and they don't need a hand out. They may need a hand up, but they need, step one is get off the couch and go get something done, go run a mile, go do something and build that momentum on achievement. And so we said, you know what, why not us? So we started this production company to tell these stories and showcase the resilience of those in frankly in the outdoors. We're all a God-fearing company. We're Christian based, and we feel that second only to the grace of Jesus Christ, the creation outdoors, the world is God's biggest gift to us, and everything you need is out there. Take a walk, go hike a mountain, hunt, fish, swim, whatever. But so using that to showcase that resilience, and it's frankly backed in the Department of Defense, who any boot camp, any branch you want, one of the first challenges is, hey, pick up that backpack full of stuff and walk it way over there.
Right.
Literally go for a walk to prove yourself you can do it. And that's how confidence is instilled in soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines. Airmen, not so much. They may take a moped or a bicycle or a golf cart, but that's okay. But no, all joking aside, I mean, just going for a walk and bringing some
Right.
stuff with you. That's how confidence is built. And so, why wouldn't resilience be proven the same way? And so we've got a lot of exciting things planned coming up. We're videoing and recording all of it. So there's gonna be a lot of things coming out. This is still a fairly new project, but we've got some great backers, some great sponsors, and we're gonna jump on the scene pretty quick.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know that this isn't part of the podcast, but I was curious about it. There's a point in your life where you find that what you do for your family, for your business, um, you know, it's excellent, and you still have space to do something else that will change somebody's life. So thank you for that, and
Of
thank you
course,
for your service.
my
All right.
pleasure.
Well, we're running out of time, and I want to make sure that we get an opportunity to, get to a rapid fire set. We ask
Send
this
it.
of everybody, and so quick top of head answers for each. What is the key to success for you?
Uh, Never losing sight of why.
Very good. What is your one piece of advice for other business owners?
Uh, Quit early, and if you need to, quit often. And that's absolute backwards advice from everybody else. So it's a shock typically, but if something you need to know early on, is this an obstacle I'm going to fight through when I need to go around, or do I just need to drop this pack and go the other way? And that's okay. Changing direction is not always quitting. It's just changing direction, but you control
No,
your fate.
and look, I've been doing this for 16 years and change, right? Um, every time that we hit a major wall, it's because we held on to something that wasn't worth
That's right.
holding on to. And so that's great advice. Love it. What is one book that has made a big difference for you or that you're reading that you think other people should get a hold of?
Do hard things.
Do hard things.
Do
First
hard
time I
things.
hear about
And
it.
forgive me. I'm gonna cheat here and go to my good friend the internet to get you an author. But do hard things as a title jumped out to me because that's my answer for depression, suicide, and everything is just, well, what are you doing? Well, I don't feel like doing anything. Right, because you haven't been doing anything. So just go do something difficult. Just go do something difficult. And so Steve Magnus is the author, and do hard things is really just about how doing the difficult things, even the process, even if you don't succeed, even if you don't finish, just the art of doing that teaches your brain that good things are on the other side of hard things. Another great one is The Dip, and that's a really
Yes.
short book. And The
Yes.
Dip is right when you feel like, and it kind of goes against my advice, which is quit early, quit often, right? But um, often your biggest success is on the other side of when you just feel like it's all going to fall apart. And yeah, I mean, if you can just, I hate to say white knuckle it and hold on just a little longer, and I know I'm giving super conflicting advice here, but if you can hold on a little bit longer, sometimes success is right around the corner.
You know what, Aaron? I mean, isn't that what this is really like? There's no one answer. There's no silver bullet, right? We have to go along and we have to learn along the way. That's what it takes to build a business. That's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Even things that you did well before will not work on the next thing that you undertake.
That's
So,
right.
it really is something that will evolve with you. All right. So if you had to choose only one area of your business that you could immediately improve tomorrow, what will that be?
Easy answer is immigration because we just started the practice. But no, I got a passion for immigration. It excites me that we can practice anywhere. We're not just limited to North Louisiana, where my license is currently limited to, but it's a federal practice, so we can get out. And I'm excited to help people navigate what I can only imagine is an extremely confusing process. I know it's a confusing process. I'm learning it myself from the legal side. I've got a great of counsel who's been teaching immigration law for 20 years. She's fantastic. But I just feel like as as confusing as criminal defense can be for someone accused of something, most of us grew up fundamentally knowing, watching television shows, right to remain silent, hearing things that are going to sound familiar in the process, and people are still completely lost when it happens to them. Immigration is something that I mean, it changes daily. And so I'm really excited to kind of pull back the curtain on that and help folks really build that up.
I love it. Thank you for that. So before we get into the final question of the day, Aaron, how can other people learn more about you and your practice? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, Lawrence-lawfirm.com always gets me. Somehow I moved to this little bitty town and RustonLawyers.com was available. It's going to get you to the same website, but sometimes that's easier to spell. Um, I'm on LinkedIn always and all the time. I'm always messaging folks on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out personally or for any questions. But yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Love it. And so, final question of the day. I know that lots of things have inspired you throughout your life to move to the next thing that you have to do. What did you find that is most inspiring for you right now?
Uh, Right now it's my kids. I don't even know if inspiring is the right word because they're just a constant motivator. But what I'll tell you about this much less cheesy is some words from my grandfather, which always stay on my desk, and it's that the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing, and it's absolute front porch sweet tea sipping advice, but it is never not applied to a problem or a win or anything I've gone through up, down, left, right. That's it, you know. And so, in order to do that, that's the eternal goal of balance, right? Is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Absolutely love it. I'm gonna write it down, put it on my board over here. I keep those things that I learned um, right on site. Aaron, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all these with us. Thank you to the audience for watching and sharing. There's a lot of great nuggets here. So if you can save it, make sure that you pass it along. There's somebody who will get inspiration from this. There's somebody who will make a you will make a difference to if you get them to see this. And
Well,
so
if that's the case, I'd love it if they reached out to me and told me because I can use encouragement like anybody else.
that's the thing that we are in business. We tend to be a little separated from everybody else, but you don't really know what the situation is. People who are in business, we're going to show up a face that says, "We got it." And we could be terrified. And we're not going to say anything. You don't need to assume anything. Just whenever you get something like this across that you know is going to make a difference for them, send it their way. You don't know what difference you can make. And so, thank you. Thank you, Aaron, again. Thank you to the audience and make it a great day. Until next time.